How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Yudalit, Daf 14 of Masechta BavaBasra. Friends, gewaltige Daf. Okay, here's the thing with Daf Yudalit. Look, I'll tell you, I like this Daf, but I like the. Okay, here's the thing with Daf Yudalit. It's a very interesting Daf. There's some very interesting stuff on here. It does get very technical. It does pull out the whole finding the diameter from the circumference kind of stuff, but a little bit of math. But I don't really have a problem with that. It's not difficult math. It's just like adding and subtracting and stuff. But it gets kind of technical, like you're doing math. But I think it's cool. I think it's interesting stuff. Let's go weiter. So we're going to start on Daf Yud Gimel Mud Beis. About 10 lines or so from the bottom / before it gets wide, around there. Essentially where we ended yesterday. Taner Rabbanan. Madbik Adam Teir Nevim Uchsuvim Ke'echad Divrei Reb Meir. Reb Meir's opinion is that I guess you can. Isn't that you can or you should? I guess you can. I think that's the point. I think the point is that actually you can. I think maybe the implication in the Gemara a little later on is the point that you can do this. Okay. You can have one very, very, very long scroll that has everything on it. How do you say this word? Is it Pentateuch? Pentateuch? That's how I'm going to say it. The other option is Pentatuach. Pentateuch? Pentatuach? What are the other options? The Pentateuch. So it can have the Pentateuch and the prophets and the writings all on one extremely long scroll. Okay? So Meir says that you can have one extremely long scroll with everything on it. Rabbi Yehuda says Torah bifnei atzma, Nevi'im bifnei atzma, and Mechsuvim bifnei atzma. So Rabbi Yehuda says you could divide it into 3 books: the Pentateuch on one scroll, the prophets on another scroll, and the writings on a 3rd scroll. The Chacham say, look, the Pentateuch is in its own scroll. Each of the 8 prophets, oh gosh, what are the 8 prophets? It would be so embarrassing if I don't know them. Oh my gosh. Let's see if I know them. Joshua, Shoftim, what's that? Judges, and then Shmuel. But now, is Shmuel, so let's assume that Shmuel Aleph and Shmuel Beis is 1. And then Melachim, that's 4. And then, so is the Nevi'im Rishonim, right? Then Nevi'im Acharonim is Yeshaya and Yirmiyah and Yechezkel and the Treyasar. I think that's probably the 8. So, what about the Ksuvim? Do I know the Ksuvim? Oh my gosh. That's going to be harder. I definitely don't know them in order. What even comes after Treyasar? Ooh, I have a Tanakh right there. What comes after Treyasar? Maybe the 5 Megillas. So was that Koheles and Rus and the other one, Shir Hashirim, Eicha, Esther. All right, let's go weiter. So where are we? So Chacham say that the Pentateuch is on its own scroll, and then you have each of the 8 prophets on their own scrolls, so 8 scrolls for that, and then I think there are 24 books in total, so 8 and 5 is 13, so 24 minus 13 is 11, so I guess the final 11 writings would be on their own 11 separate scrolls as well. Okay, so again, so all 5 books of Moses would be in one scroll, and then from that point on, every single book would be on its own scroll, according to Rashi. Fine. Let's go weiter. The Amar of Yehuda says Rabbi Yehuda, "Ma'aseh bebaitus ben zunin she'ayu lo shmona neviim midubakim ke'echad." Al pi Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. So says Rabbi Yehuda that you see, I say that it's the Pentateuch on one scroll, all the prophets together on another scroll, and all the writings on a 3rd scroll. And there's Take a Maise with Baisus Ben Zunin, Shaylo Shmona Nevi'im Medubakim Ke'echad. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, and he was together with, he was like doing like Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. So you see, not so. My opinion. We also have Baitus ben Zunin, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah on board. The Yeshom, that those who say lo, are you lo ela echad bifnei atzmo. So there are those though who say that no, it's not like the Chachamim, that each prophet was in his own separate scroll. Rebbe says, Rebbe says that there was Taka Maisa, where they brought in front of us one extremely long scroll with everything on it, the Pentateuch, the prophets, the writings, and we said it was Givaldig. Now, Ben Chumash, meaning like Reb Meir, Ben Chumash lechumash shel Torah arba shitin. So between each of the 5 Chumashim, so in the Torah scroll, right? We have a Torah scroll. So between the each of the 5 books, you leave 4 lines of space. Okay. V'chein ben kol navi lenavi, and the same would be between each of the prophets, each book of the prophets. And between each of the Trei Asar, Gimel Shitin, there would be 3 empty lines. And if one of the books ends at the bottom of the column, so you don't need to leave space at the top of the next column. You could just start the next book at the top of the next column. The Gemara is going to kind of explain why in a second. How it's ledabik Torah nevim uchsuvim ke'echad. If somebody wants to have one long scroll with the Pentateuch, the prophets, and the writings, medabik va'ose birosho k'dei logul amud uvisofo k'dei logul hekif. You hear that? So what you do is, like all those like like the classic kind of illustrations of like a Megillah. So there's like the one scroll is like, it's kind of like a Sefer Torah, but like the Sefer Torah has 2 poles. What do you call them? Two thingies, 2 columns, like 2 handle kind of things on either side. Now a Megillah, like in at least like our Megillahs just tend to be just parchment, but like they would have like kind of one handle thingy on it. So that's what we're talking about. So if you have a super long scroll with the Pentateuch, the prophets, and the writings on it, so on the first side of it, you would have you'd have enough cloth, enough empty parchment to be able to wrap around the handle thingy, pole thingy. And then at the end though, so at the very end of the scroll, you would have to leave a lot of parchment, enough to be able to wrap around the whole thing. Now remember, this is going to be a really long scroll, so it's going to be like rolled up in a real big, thing, and it has to be the circumference of the whole thing at the end. Okay, so at the beginning it's just enough to wrap around a small little pole, but then you're wrapping around and around and around and around and around and around the pole until you get to the very end, and then you have to leave enough blank parchment at the end to be able to do one loop around the whole big fat loopy thing. Does that make sense? So again, virosho kedei logul amud. So at the beginning enough just to kind of wrap around the pole. Uvesofo, and at the end of this huge scroll, kedei logul hekif, enough parchment to surround the whole thing, its circumference. U'mesayim milamato maschim milamala, and any book that ends at the bottom of the column, you could just immediately start the next book at the top of the next column. You don't need to leave space. And if you want to divide this extremely long scroll into smaller scrolls, gezuntehait. So Micah Amar, what do you mean if you want to divide it up, you can divide it up? Of course you can divide it up. And that's why I was saying earlier that I think the point according to Reb Meir is you can put them all into one long scroll, but of course you can also divide them up into smaller ones. So what does it mean in balachto chotech? That if you want to divide it up, you can divide it up. Of course you can divide it up. So Achikam, this is what it's saying. She'im balachto chotech. No, the reason why, if one of the books ends at the bottom of a column, you could start the next book immediately at the top of the next column without leaving a space, is because if you divide it up into separate books, then it's going to be weird, because like the book is going to start with like just like a bunch of random space at the top. So 1 second. Yeah. Yeah. Right, because if you divide up these things, then like the first column is going to have this like random space at the top, and it's going to be weird. V'ra minhu. We have a contradiction. We said just now that you would have like the pole thingy on one end, but that was it. On the other end, there wouldn't be a pole thingy. There's got to be a better thing like a handle pole thingy. Dude, what is that? There's something flying around. Well, why should there be anything flying around? I didn't let it in. It's probably the power washer's fault. Anyways, so where was I? I was just coming up with a good name for it. A handle pole thingy. I think that's what I was going to call it. A handle pole thingy. A handle pole thingy. So we said that there was a handle pole thingy on one side, and that was it. Then you would just wrap around and around and around and around. And at the end, you would have enough parchment to wrap around the ganze Zach. So now for a minute, we have a contradiction. Tchilas sefer v'sofo. The beginning of the scroll and the end, kidei logul, in order to wrap it around. Kidei logul mai, to wrap what around? Ikidei logul amud, if it's just enough to wrap around the handle pole thingy, so kasha hekif, well then because we're saying tchila sefer v'sofo, it sounds like it would be the same thing. So if we're talking about the handle pole thingy, so it sounds like there would be a handle pole thingy at the beginning and at the end, like we have on our Sifrei Torah, right? There's two handle pole thingies on our Sifrei Torah. So what's pshat in the Brisa where it says that at the end there's no handle pole thingy, rather it's just wrapped around the ganze Zach. Ikidei logul hekif, and if we're saying that it's talking about enough to wrap around the ganze Zach, kasha amud. So what's pshat in the earlier Brisa where we said that at the beginning of the scroll there's a handle pole thingy? So Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak l'tzdodin katani. So Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says that no, when it says tchila sefer v'sofo, it's meaning tchila sefer is talking about the handle pole thingy, and the sofo would be talking about enough to wrap around the ganze Zach. Rav Ashi Amar kitanya b'sefer Torah, whereas Rav Ashi says no, that other Brisa, that second Brisa, is talking, meaning the first Brisa was talking about if you have one extremely large scroll with the Pentateuch, the prophets, and the writings. But this Brisa is talking about a Sefer Torah, like our Sefer Torah. Our Sefer Torahs are just the Pentateuch, and they have a handle pole thingy at the beginning and at the end. So Rav Ashi Amar Kitani Ayi Sefer Torah, that right. So when it talks about Tchila Sefer V'sofo Kedei Logul, it's talking about a Sefer Torah. Kedetani is within the Brisa called Sfarim Niglol Mitchilason Li Sofon, that all of the Sfarim in general would be rolled like on one handle pole thingy, or even maybe even without a handle pole thingy. V'Sefer Torah Niglol LeEmtza Iso, whereas the Sefer Torah is rolled to the middle, meaning you have two handle pole thingies, and you roll it not from beginning to end, but into the middle, right? Like, you have two handle pole thingies, and you, roll it into the middle, I guess. Like, kind of, you roll it into the middle. Like, you don't roll it all to one side. It can kind of roll both ways, I guess is the point. I don't know. They're two handle pole thingies. You make a handle pole thingy at the beginning and a handle pole thingy at the end. The people writing Sefer Torah in Yerushalayim, they would make the Sefer Torah like this, two handle pole thingies. Tana Rabbanan the Rabbi said, "Ein osin Sefer Torah lo orko yoser al hekefo v'lo hekefo yoser al orko." Okay, so this is a tricky thing. This seems to not be a chiyuv, because this would be crazy, as we're going to see soon, that it was like very, very, very rare that it would actually work out this way. But basically, you want the dimension of the Sefer Torah to be such that the length, from top to bottom of like the Sefer Torah, in between each of the handles on the handle pole thingy, would be the same length as the diameter of the whole thing, rolled all the way to Vizos Bracha or Bereshis. So again, lo orko yosar lekefo, the length of it should not be more than the circumference when it's all the way rolled up. V'lekefo yosar al orko, and the circumference should not be more than the length of it. Shalu is Rebbe Shir Sefer Torah b'chamos. So they asked Rebbe, what is the amount, the measure of the Sefer Torah? Amarloin b'gvil shisha. If you're working with gvil was like a thicker parchment. So if it's a thicker parchment, then we're talking about 6 tefachim. That if the klaf is 6 tefachim tall and you're writing, I guess, a regular kind of writing, so then by the end of the klaf it will be such that when rolled up they will both be 6, the circumference and the length. Beklaf b'chama. But what if you're using a klaf and not a gvil? Any odea, we don't know. Rav Huna kosav shivin sifrei deiraisa. Rav Huna wrote 70 sifrei Torah, v'lo isramile elo chad, and only one of the 70 turned out like this, that the length was the same size as the circumference when it's all rolled up. Now, Rav Acha, I don't really understand this because it's a little crazy, but Rav Acha bar Yaakov, the great Rav Acha bar Yaakov, Kosav Chad, he wrote only one Sefer Torah, Amishche de Igle, on a klaf, on a hide from a calf. V'Yisrael and a poshet worked out. He wrote one Sefer Torah and it was perfect. The length was the same as the circumference. Yavu be'Rabbanan Denayu v'noch nafshin. The rabbis looked at him and he died. Yeah, I don't get it. Were they jealous of it? I don't. Some kind of ayin hara. I don't exactly understand what happened. Rav Acha bar Yaakov made one Sefer Torah. It was perfect. The rabbis looked at him and he died. I don't know. The rabbi said to Rav Amnuna, Kosav Reb Ami Daled Meya Sifrei Torah. The rabbi said to Rav Amnuna that Reb Ami wrote 400 Sifrei Torah. Amalu, Rav Amnuna said to them, there's not enough hours in one's life to be able to write 400 Sifrei Torah. Amalu, how many Torah Sifrei Torah a year would that be? I don't know. How long? Let's say he lived to 100. He would have to write 4 Sifrei Torah every single year from the day that he's born. I mean, there just isn't enough. I don't know. Do we have any sofrim here at Babylon Talmud? How long does it take to write a Sefer Torah? It takes a really long time, no? So Dilma Torah Tziva, and that would mean that he wasn't doing anything else. Dilma Torah Tzivalanu Moshe Kosav. Maybe he didn't write 400 Sifrei Torah. Maybe he wrote Torah Tzivalanu Moshe 400 times. Tosfos says, very special thing here at Babylon Talmud, quote Tosfos. It's an easy one. Right to the left of it. Dilma Torah Tziva v'Omer Rabbeinu Tam de'oisei pasuk kori Torah. That pasuk alone, Torah Tziva Lanu Moshe, is called Torah. K'damer per Gimel Desukah Kohen Hayidei Ledaber Av Melamdo Torah. My Torah Tziva Lanu Moshe. That a Kohen, when he knows how to speak, his father teaches him Torah. What's Torah? Torah Tziva Lanu Moshe. So you can argue that Torah Tziva Lanu Moshe itself is called the Torah. So maybe he wrote that 400 times. Amalei Rava, the Reb Zera says, Rava to Reb Zera, Notar Reb Yanai Arba Meya Karmei. That Reb Yanai. So Rava says to Reb Zera that Reb Yanai planted 400 vineyards. Reb Zera says, maybe when he says vineyards, it's not exactly 400 huge vineyards. It means, technically, we learned in Masechta Sota, Rashi tells us that we said, right, the Pasuk says, Misha nota karim v'lo chililo. Yachzav Yoshev Leveso, something like that, right? That when it comes to war, if somebody planted a vineyard but didn't get to, harvest it, so he can go home. So the vineyard just means basically 5 vines. So maybe that's what Rabbi Yanai planted, 400 of those. Okay, so now we get up to the math part. All right, it's not difficult math. It's like literally not difficult math. It's like very basic multiplication, addition, and subtraction. But math nonetheless, and it's technical. Meisvei, we have a kasha. Arun she'asa Moshe amosayim v'chetzi arko v'ama v'chetzi rachbo v'ama v'chetzi komaso. So the pasuk says, in Parshas Truma, that the Aron that Moses made, amosayim v'chetzi arko, was 2.5 amis long, 1.5 amis wide, 1.5 amis tall. Be'ama bas shisha tfachim. This is the opinion of Reb Meir, as we're going to see in a minute. Reb Yehuda is going to argue on him. That we're talking about an amma that is 6 tfachim. As we're going to see, Reb Yehuda says that we're talking about an amma that's 5 tfachim. But Reb Meir says we're talking about an amma that is 6 tfachim. So if that's the case, do the math. the length was 6 times 2.5, which is 15. The width is one. Wait, what? I don't know what you said. The length was 6 times 2.5, which is 15. The width was 6 times 1.5, which is 9, and the height was oichet 6 times 1.5, which is 9. So now, the luchis, which went in the aron, orkan shisha v'rachban shisha. Their length was 6, and their width was 6. I guess they were square. Ve'ovyon shlosha, they were 3 tfachim thick. Okay, there's a little fly flying around over here, just enough to distract me. I gotta get there's no. What do you get for for the power washers? You get noise canceling headphones. What do you get for the flies? I don't know. Take off your glasses. Rachban shisha v'ovnin shlosha. Munachis kineged orko shel aron. So now the luchis. Very interesting. So it seems so Moses had 2 luchis. Now for now we're talking about the luchis shnias, the ones that are not broken, the ones that are whole. So there were 2 luchis, shnei luchis avonim. Apparently each one of them was square. So 6 tfachim long, 6 tfachim wide, 3 tfachim thick. Now we said that the aron was 15 tfachim long. So if you lay out the 2 luchis inside of the aron, you lay one down and then you lay down another one, so that is 6 times 2 is 12. So that takes up 12 of the 15 of the length of the aron. Okay, so munachos connected arko shel aron. So you lay out the 2 luchis lengthwise in the aron. Kame luchis ochlis ba'aron. So how much space do the luchis take up in the aron? The aron is 15 amis long, and the luchis are taking up 12 amis worth of space. Shneim also, I keep on saying amis. Tfachim, I'm sorry. It's 2.5 amis long, 15 tfachim. Sorry. 6, and the luchis are each 6 tfachim long, 6 tfachim wide, 6 tfachim tall. So ba'aron shneim also tfachim. So the luchis are taking up 12 out of the 15 tfachim in the aron. Nishtai rusham shlosha tfachim. So 15 minus 12 is 3. 3 tfachim remain. Tzemein tefach chetzer lekosel zeh v'chetzer lekosel zeh. Now the 15 tfachim of the aron include the thickness of the walls, oichit. So therefore, of the remaining 3 tfachim, subtract 1 of the tfachim, because we'll use half a tefach for, like the northern wall, and half a tefach for the southern wall, let's call it. So now you have 2 left, nishtai risham shnei tfachim. So now 2 tfachim remain. Sheboin Sefer Torah munach. And that is where Moses' Sefer Torah was. It was in the aron there in the remaining 2 tfachim. Shneimar pasuk says, "Ein ba'aron rak shnei luchos avonim." It says in the pasuk in Melachim that there was not in the aron but, so a double negative is a positive, right? That ein miut achar miut ela l'rabos. That when you have a double negative, it comes to include. So asher iniach Moshe, that Moshe put there v'gomer my ein ba'aron rak miut achar miut. That when you have a double negative, it's coming to include something new. Sefer Torah shemunach ba'aron. So it's coming to include that not only the luchis were in the aron, but oichet, a Sefer Torah, was in there as well. Pirnasta aron leorko seufanis aron lerachba. Okay, so we explained the length of the aron and what was in it lengthwise. Right, the length was 15 tfachim. You have the luchis lengthwise taking up 12 of the 15. 1 of the tfachim were for the thickness of the walls. The extra 2 tfachim was where the Sefer Torah would lie down. Now, in terms of the finest aron l'rachbo, kama luchis ochlos ba'aron shisha tfachim. So now the width of the aron was 9 tfachim. The luchis were 6 tfachim. Now remember, they were laid out lengthwise, so their width was only taking up 6 tfachim, 6 of the 9 tfachim. Nishtaru sham shlosha tfachim. So 3 tfachim remain. Tzemein tefach chetzer lekosel zeh v'chetzer lekosel zeh. Now 1 of the 3 remaining tfachim, take half of it for the thickness of the eastern wall, half of it for the thickness of the western wall. All right. Nishtaru sham shnei tfachim. Now 2 tfachim remain in the width. Shelo yeh Sefer Torah nichnas v'yotzik shu dachuk divrei merin. And the extra 2 tfachim was just so that the Sefer Torah shouldn't be, squeezed in over there. There was a little bit of extra space to put in, to place the Sefer Torah there. and it wouldn't be kind of, just forced in. They would have some extra space. Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Yehuda ba'amabas chamisha tfachim. So Rabbi Yehuda says, so that was Rabbi Meir's calculations. Rabbi Yehuda's calculations are as follows. We're talking about an amma that is 5 tfachim. So the length of the aron was 2.5 amis. So 2.5 times 5 is 12.5. The width was 1.5 amis. So 1.5 times 5 is 7.5. And the height is 7.5 as well. Ve'aluchis orkon shisha v'rachbin shisha. The luchis, again, are the same, right? They're in tfachim measured. So 6 tfachim long, 6 tfachim wide, 3 tfachim thick. V'ovin shlosha. Munachis ba'arko shel arin. They are laid out lengthwise in the arin. Kama luchis ochlis ba'arin shnei maser tfachim. So of the 12.5 tfachim of the length of the arin, according to Rabbi Yehuda, the luchis are consuming 12 of the 12.5 tefachim. Nishtayr sham chatzi tefach. So half a tefach remains. Now a tefach is 4 etzbaos thick. So half a tefach is 2 etzbaos. And says Reb Yehuda etzba lekosel zeh ve'etzba lekosel zeh. One of those etzbas are for the southern wall of the aron. The other etzbas for the northern wall of the aron. We have thus explained all of the 12.5 tefachim of the length of the aron. Pinas the aron la'arko, we've explained the length. Seufanes aron l'rachbo. Now go and explain the width of the aron. So the width was 7.5 tefachim wide, and kamaluchis ochlis be'aron shisha tefachim. Now 6 of those 7.5 tefachim of the width of the aron are for the width of the luchis. Nishtayr sham tefach b'mechza, 1.5 tefachim remain. Say me'en chatzi tefach. Say me'en chatzi tefach, right? So now of the 1.5 tefachim remaining, so a half a tefach. Skip the word mech. The word mechza is going to come up twice in the next few words. Skip it both times. So etzba lekosel zeh ve'etzba lekosel zeh. So for the half tefach, which is 2 etzbos, so 1 etzba for the eastern wall of the aron, 1 etzba for the western wall of the aron. Nishtayr sham tefach, and now what you have remaining is 1 tefach. Shabo amudin omdin, and there were I don't really understand what these are, but there were these like silver beams that were in the aron as well, and they would go on either side of the luchis. Each one being half a tefach, and that explains the width of the aron. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Apiryon osolo amelech Shlomo, that Shlomo made this. What was it, like some kind of a chair or something? But it's a reference to the tabernacle. Me'atze alavanon, from the wood of Lebanon. Amud of osa kesef, and its beams, its rods were silver. Rifidaso zav, something else was zav. Merkav argamon, and what the seat was argamon. What's that? Scarlet or something. And then it says tochel rotzuf ahava, but the middle was love. My grandfather, my other grandfather, right, not the not from how you doing there. My father's father. He. I remember we once had a Shabbos together, and Motzei Shabbos, the ganze Mishpacha was darin, and on Motzei Shabbos he said over from his Rebbe, Reb Shlomo Hyman, from, was it from Torah Das? Maybe? I don't know where is it from. That he quoted this pasuk, I guess that they once gave him a gift, and he said, okay, so there's a period also Melech Shlomo Me'atze Levon Amudav, also Kesef, Fidoso Zav, Mekavta Argomon, but the ikar is Tocho Rotzef Ahava, that it was filled with love, and that was the main point. Okay, so that's the rods and the aron and zeo on either side. And the Philistines, when they returned the aron to the Yidden, so they returned it with a box that was sent as a gift to God. Munach mitzido was next to the aron. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, "Ves klei azov asher ashivosem lo," and the gold vessels that you will return with the aron, asham, as a guilt offering. Tasima ba'argas mitzido, place in a box next to the aron when you return it. V'shilachtem oso v'halach, and you will send it. V'alav Sefer Torah munach, and the Sefer Torah, according to Rabbi Yehuda, was on that box. Right? Because according to Rabbi Meir, the Sefer Torah was in the. According to Rabbi Meir, the Sefer Torah was in the Aron. According to Rabbi Yehuda, the Sefer Torah was not in the Aron. There was no room in the Aron. It was in this box that was next to the Aron. Shenemar, the Pasuk says, "Lakoach haSefer Torah zeh v'samtem osu mitzad Aron bris Hashem." Take the Sefer Torah and put it next to, on the side of the Ark of God. Mitzad umunach v'lo b'socho. It was next to the Aron, but not in the Aron. Umani Mekayim, according to Rabbi Yehuda, Umani Mekayim ein ba'aron rak. So then what does he learn out from ein ba'aron rak? Rabbi Meir had learned from that it comes to include that the Sefer Torah was in there. What's included by ein ba'aron rak? According to Rabbi Yehuda, l'rabos shivrei luchos shemunachin ba'aron. To include that the broken tablets were also in the Aron as well. That's what's included. Sefer Torah. Now, so getting back to our original question, Sefer Torah. Now, if it enters your mind, like Rebbe had initially said, that the circumference of the Sefer Torah could be 6 tefachim, so michdei kol sheyesh be'kefo shlosha tefachim, anything whose circumference is 3, yesh bo rochav tefach, has a diameter of 1. Meaning, and therefore, if we're going to say that the circumference of the Sefer of a Sefer Torah is 6, well, then that means that the diameter of it is 2, i.e., the thickness of it, the width of it is 2. And since the Sefer Torah is rolled into the middle, so nafish le mitrei tfachos, and it's going to be a little bit more than 2 tfachim wide. Ravcha de bene, because of the space, I guess, between between the 2 rolls or whatever. So betray pushcha hechi Yosef. So how would it have been able to fit in just those 2 extra tfachim according to Reb Meir? According to Reb Meir, the Aron was 15 tfachim long, minus 1 tefach for the walls, and then minus 12 tefachim for the luchis. There were 2 tefachim remaining that were for the Sefer Torah, but the Sefer Torah apparently was a little bit thicker than 2 tefachim wide. So Amr Rav Acha bar Yaakov says, Rav Acha bar Yaakov Sefer Azorah l'tchilas u'niglal. So Rav Acha bar Yaakov says that. So Rav Acha bar Yaakov says, who's the same Rav Acha bar Yaakov who was Rav Acha bar Yaakov? Yeah, he was the one who wrote the Sefer Torah and they killed him. Anyways, Rav Acha bar Yaakov Sefer Torah, Sefer Azorah, that the Sefer Torah that they had in the Beis Hamikdash in the Azorah, in the Aron, the tchilaso hu niglal, was rolled not into the middle, but the whole thing rolled up. But still, I mean, even if it's punked 2 tfachim in diameter, how would it fit in exactly 2 tfachim? It would be a squeeze. Now, if you do it based on pi, right? I believe that the diameter is circumference times divided by pi, I think. So it comes out to actually like 1.9. So maybe it would fit. But anyways. Amr Rav Ashi says, Rav Ashi, Dikarich be purta, Vikarich el. Well, it wouldn't be entirely rolled up. A little bit at the end would be, kind of also rolled up. So like it would be rolled up on it would be mostly rolled up in one direction, and at the end there would be a little bit of a roll to just kind of like, make it a little bit thinner, and that would have been on above it. All right, the art school is like a diagram if you want to see what that looks like, if I didn't do a good job explaining it. Now, Rabbi Yehuda, Mikame de Lacey Argaz, Sefer Torah Echi Abba Yosef. Now, according to Rabbi Yehuda, one second, you just have to check something. What time is that until 6:02. Okay, I got 10 minutes. So now, according to Rabbi Yehuda, who says that the Sefer Torah was in this box that was next to the Aron, so Mikam Delesi argues, what about before the Plishtim sent that box? Sefer Torah Eichi Abba Yosef. Where was the Sefer Torah before then? Dapa Hava Nofik Minei Yosef Ilave Sefer Torah. There was a board that was coming out of the Aron, and the Sefer Torah was on that board. Now, according to Reb Meir, Hai mitzad Aron my Ovid lay. According to Reb Meir, who says that the Sefer Torah was inside the Aron, so what does he do with that pasuk that says that you put it next to the Aron? Hahumi boile de masnach lei mitzad v'lo masnach lei v'lo masnach beinei luchei u'le'olam begave min atzad. Well, according to Reb Meir, what that is teaching about when it says on the side, it means that we put the Sefer Torah on the side of the luchas, not in between the luchas, but it's inside the Aron, right? Meaning, according to Reb Meir, the Aron was 15 tefachim long. Now the luchas take up 12 of those tefachim, and then minus 1 for the walls. So there's 2 tefachim left, and the Sefer Torah goes after the 2 luchas in the 2 tefachim that are remaining at the end. That's where the Sefer Torah goes, essentially on the side. I may have thought that maybe you put it in between the 2 luchas in the middle. No, on the side. After the 2 luchas. Reb Meir amudim heicha avu kaimin. Now, according to Reb Meir, where did those silver rods go? According to Reb Yehuda, they were inside. Where did they go? According to Reb Meir, there's no more room. According to because according to Reb Meir, he had those 2 extra tefachim of space on the side so that the Sefer Torah wouldn't be squished in there. So where did then where does Reb Meir put those rods? Mibarai, outside of the Aron. Reb Meir shivrei luchis dimunachin ba'aron minale. How does Reb Meir know that the shivrei luchis were oichit in the Aron? Reb Yehuda learned it out from ein ba'aron rak, to include the shivrei luchis. Reb Meir used that pasuk to include the Sefer Torah. So how does Reb Meir know that the shivrei luchis were oichit in the Aron? Minala Menafkale learns it out. Midravuna, the Amr Ravuna, Maidichsiv. What does the pasuk mean? Asher Nikra Shem Hashem Tzvakis Yokshev Akruv Ma'olav. It says by the Aron Shem. It says Shem twice. Milamed Sheluchis v'Shivrei Luchis Munachim Ba'aron, coming to include that also the Shivrei Luchis, the double lashon of Shem, is coming to include that Oichet the Shivrei Luchis were in the Aron as well. Ve'idach. Now, according to Reb Yehuda, what does he do with that pasuk? Aumi baile licht Reb Yechanan. It's like Reb Yechanan, Reb Yechanan, Reb Shimon ben Yechai, Melamed Hashem v'chol kinuyav munachim ba'aron. That God's name and all of the other names of God were all in the Aron. I think that's an acceptable way to explain that. Like all the names of God were in the Aron. Okay, that's where we learn it from Shem. Vidachnami baile lachi enachinami. Now, wouldn't Reb Meir also need to learn out from Shem, that all of God's names were in the Aron? Yeah, Taka, he does. Well then, Ela Shivrei Luchis D'Menachem Ba'aron Minale. Then how does Reb Meir know that the Shivrei Luchis were oichit in the Aron? Nafkalei D'Tani Rav Yosef learns out from Rav Yosef, D'Tani Rav Yosef, Asher Shibarta V'Samtam. Now the pasuk says, right, take the Luchis Asher Shibarta that you broke V'Samtam and placed them. Mlameche Aluchis V'Shivrei Luchis Munachim Ba'aron. That also the broken Luchis were in the Aron as well. Ve'idach, and Reb Yehuda learns out, Omi Baile, Lichid Rish Lakish, Dam Rish Lakish, Asher Shibarta, Amila Kadosh Baruch Hu L'Moshe, Shkoyich Sheshibarta. That he says Shkoyich, that you broke the Luchas. Chaver, we're going to stop. We're going to stop here because now we're going to start like a new thing that I think is going to go on for a bit. So we're going to stop here. We'll pick it up from here tomorrow. I thought that was a very interesting daf about the Sefer Torah, different halachas about the Sefer Torah and how to write them and how to break them up and to divide them. And then we got into the math about the Aron and the Luchas. I thought there was a lot of very, very interesting stuff there. Chevre, I hope you enjoyed Daf Yud Dalet of BavaBasra. Peace out.